weed office, the county had determined that for liability reasons, the county was not going to do spraying on its own, so it was pretty much an administrative. And there were some years that there was money to actually do work on county roads and areas, and there were years that the only work that got done was contract with the Department of Transportation. And those years showed. We had successes. We had areas that we managed to clean up, and I've noticed they've stayed that way, for which I'm very grateful. And then the people in the county decided they wanted more than that, and that's when it moved on, and the mill levy was passed to add more money to it. There was one year I had a budget of 0.87 mills. It did not cover my salary.
I think it says something about how people feel about weeds and maintaining and controlling noxious weeds. This county voted in 5 mil permanent levy just for that. One other question for you, Virginia, and you, Wynn, too. Training space. You are also extension 4-H. We have some EMTs here. This is a long view because the ambulance building is not a very good building. It's expensive to heat. So that's why we included you guys. But can you speak to your needs for training, meeting facility, that kind of thing?
Definitely. It would be nice to have an area to where, especially wintertime, like Lynn's talking about, is where you can bring people together. That's a lot of times when we do our pesticide applicator trainings, particularly with producers, that's when they're available. Summertime, everybody's busy going here and there. So you need a space where you can bring in 45 to 50 people at a time, have room to set up, and do different hands-on training sessions if you need to, where you can demonstrate some things. And that's what I look at is between the different 4-H clubs, our training sessions, between weed and extension, the type of programs that we could put on. And then I look at, the EMTs too, is just the space where you could spread things out, do the CPR classes, try to, and actually do more public type classes too that help educate people more on some of those aspects of not just the EMT training alone, but what can we do to also educate the public. Right now, we have spaces that we utilize and we make them work. But it would be nice to have some areas where maybe you could store some things, or would we have access to, with the technology today, instead of having a lot of our speakers travel, if we could utilize like the school system has with their smart boards and different things, where we could have basically people presenting from their hometown, wherever they're at, to our group. They wouldn't have to travel here. That opens up a lot of things, instead of it being costly to bring things in, paying mileage or speaker fees for some of these things. If there's an opportunity, we could just have them broadcast via the internet and actually, share that knowledge, and it would be less expensive for us too. So I don't know.
Yeah. And that goes with everything we're at. And most people don't realize is that up until just here, it's sitting on the AG's office for approval, but the Montana Peace Officer Standards and Training Council has finally determined that law enforcement needs continuing education requirements. There's nothing set forth in statute, and there hasn't been for many years. Firefighters, EMTs, they've always had a continuing education. Once you went to basic, you were done as a cop. If you chose to go to training, you did. Now we have a requirement, and that's part of our problem within our offices. We don't have the space in our office either, from the law enforcement side, to meet the requirements of the training set forth by post now. So we have to have the ability to send people to training to get them every year. They have to have so much time. With what what Virginia said is that's a very viable tool that we're using. Even in the Coroners Association, it was part of developing a new way to do continuing education for coroners, and part of that is web-based, where you get a group together. One of the pathologists in the state or whoever will get on the internet, give a presentation, and that group gives that credit. But there's, you gotta have a way to do that. Search and rescue, when we come to wintertime, we have to focus our efforts in different aspects, and that, a lot of videos and just hands-on training with ropes or whatever else. Even to have a meeting with those things, you gotta have a way to operate, and you gotta have a person to put people in to do this, and trying to lump it in a 30-minute segment, we're cutting off our nose to spider things. And the same aspect of having a training meeting room is also using, if we had a facility that had an internet and things of that nature, bathrooms, showers, we could also use an emergency operations center. We've lived a long time in society going, that stuff will never happen to us. Reality is, when is it gonna happen to us? It's not if. And if we have an area that's compatible with some technology, we can have an emergency operations center right there. So not necessarily in a group setting, in 2000, the Toston Mongo fire, and even the Bucksnort fire and the Cave Gulch fire, I was all part of those. And our meetings occurred in a tent, or they occurred somewhere else. And now we use technology, we use maps, we use computers to outline where our fire's at, what the behavior is, and what's expected. In an area like that, we can have those briefings in that area, and everybody gets to see everything and be exposed to make a better decision. And I think that's part of that encompasses that. And I don't want everybody to think that this training room aspect is just about training. It's the totality of everything that goes on. And if you can't tell, public safety is pretty important to me in all facets, whether it be fire, medical, or law enforcement, or search and rescue. That little caveat to that, and I don't know if people understand, is the sheriff is tasked by state law to have a search and rescue that's functional. So she doesn't have an option with it, and so we've worked really hard to try to develop that. And that's why we're pushing for bigger numbers and more expertise in rock climbing or boat rescue or ice rescue or diving or what have you. And so it's not just something we're bored we want to play. We do have a legal responsibility to do so. But I think that's where, and to go back to that training aspect, not to be all over the board, but for us as law enforcement, the classes are very expensive. Like right now, I have three of our staff members going to field training officer class up in Kalispell. That class is $395 per person, not paying a hotel room, not costing mileage and per diem. So to get people trained to train new coming staff, because most people don't realize that since I've been here for 14 years, I've had over 70 employees come and go. That's a lot of money we spent in trying to recruit and retain, and we haven't done a very good job at it. So, if we can have an area where we can hold the training, then we can get our training done that we need, and also host it for other people as well, in a pretty central location. And I think that meets our needs, not only in search and rescue, but also in public safety as law enforcement, detention and dispatch, because they all have that same requirement as well under the post standards and rules. So if that helps, there it is.
It does, thank you very much. Yes.
Just to kind of add on that, like what Wynn said is, if we could have a facility where, it's not that we're going to bring in 100 or 200 people, but groups of 50 in our professions, is a pretty good group. I also look at what could be the economic impact that would have to the community, to the businesses. By pulling people here instead of us having to travel, and what can we do to bring them here and also utilize some of our services that we have in the area or vendors. I look at that, it could be a possibility. The other thing is, besides just maybe in agencies, is I look at the other community groups out there that are looking for spaces. The local garden club, they try to host their district and regional meetings here sometimes. And they're looking for places to have something that's a nice thing that they'd like to say, hey, come see what we do. So I think, there's some opportunities. And it's just, what can we do to make it more realistic or less expensive, I guess, for the trainings that we do have to have? How can we offer them and yet provide the skill type training that is required for us today?
Something came up that I don't think has been mentioned. The EMTs have a place to go work, and that's for the ambulance. We don't own that building. That building is not ours. That belongs to the hospital.
There's As you know, there is talk that that may not be there
That's right.
over time, that they're looking at maybe doing some other things, so that meeting room there may not be there in a couple of years, we don't know, but.
And that's one of the things we're looking at with the long range, is this would be usable for you guys as well, should that happen, instead of all of a sudden getting a word that this is not gonna be available anymore and we need to knee-jerk, which is when we start spending a lot more money. So, that's definitely a part of this, is looking at the long view. Did EMT wanna add anything at this point?
Well, I agree wholeheartedly with what Virginia and Ian have said about the training. We're required more training all along to use that space. And like I said, that building is not gonna be there much longer, and it's costing a lot just to use it right now. And so we're looking at not only training space, but the space to house at least 2 ambulances, maybe more in the future too, so we gotta get looking at it also.
I think what it comes down to is you got growth. I mean, you know, it's not just Broadwater County. You got Helena, you got Bozeman, they're coming here. It's like when? I mean, he's got all the search and rescue stuff. You got more ambulance stuff. Now you got trash, more trash. You got more cars on the road. I mean, it's not just one department. All departments are growing and they're just exploding. You got environmental issues because other states didn't do things like they were supposed to. So now environmental has gone just huge, and we're just starting to catch up.
We also have more mosquitoes.
Yes. We do.
So since we have covered the 3 that would kind of be a team as far as the meeting space requirements, was that? Well, what I was going to do is since we've kind of covered the 3 that would be together, can we then hop to Sean? Can you share with us what we're looking at? There's been a rumor that the office building will be $500,000. That's not what your report says. I'm wondering if you can dispel that, and then we can shoot to Brian and Dana.
Oh, sure. So essentially, the numbers in my report reflect an office building that is essentially a 36 by 64 structure. It's got about 4 office spaces, a lab, a laundry room, 2 bathrooms with shower facilities, and a break room. And it also includes a 24-foot by 36-foot meeting training facility. The cost on that is roughly $170,000. That's for a brand new modular structure. Comes in 3 pieces, shipped from Denver, Colorado. The storage space needs, again, that was a 60 by 100-foot building. That was based on the equipment that currently is housed in mosquito, weed, and search and rescue, along with a little bit of room for growth for those departments. The basic cost for that structure is probably around $160,000 to $170,000. Weed needs and mosquito need a fill site, which would probably tack on another $30,000 plus or minus for that facility. So for the chemical storage and concrete pad and cover and stuff that would go with that.
And Sean, one thing that we didn't consider in this is the ambulances. Would that be big enough to house 2 ambulances?
I'd have to look at that, but I mean, the worst case scenario would be adding on, another 14 feet on the building, which is not an extensive cost for what we're looking at.
And Lynn addressed the need for it to be insulated. That is the case also for ambulances, which have, you see heads nodding. Also, the chemical can't freeze with mosquitoes and with weed. So the need for insulation is actually throughout the entire groups involved. So thank you for that. Anything more you want to add at this point? I will have a question for you later.
Yeah, because I believe you said the other day that with this modular and this other building, so you're talking about the $400,000 figure.
Yeah, it's about a little shy of that mark, yes.
That's what I had down.
Does that include the cost of the land?
That's actually based on putting that on county property.
It would be on county property.
Yeah.
What about the old building? What should be done with the old building?
Well,
Would it be sold or used?
my recommendation on that to the commission would be to try to find somebody to sell that to.
That likes the ground 9 inches below
Well, I
grade?
mean, there would be some mitigation things that would happen, but you'd have to disclose all that up front and see, I mean, there are definitely things to be done with that building, it's just, the problem is, again, looking at search and rescue, I went in that building, you can't even walk through that thing, because they've got equipment just really piled in there. And it's obviously not big enough for what they need now. And so to try to do something with that, at that location, it's difficult because, you know, the lot's only so big and you've got setback issues and those types of things. So by the time you put the money into it, you might be better served to, you know, put everybody in a nicer, bigger facility and take care of all the needs at once.
What approximately the county, what part of the land are you looking at? Where-
So there's the county actually owns, if you know where the Cedar Canister is, that property along with the road shop sits on a, I don't know, I guess it's a 9 or 10 acre parcel. It's just north of the city limits. And that would be the parcel. Actually where the piles of material are, that road currently keeps right now that are to the left as you go in towards the canister site. That area probably in particular, because there is city water and sewer that come down that alleyway just by the existing search and rescue building.
Got a question for you, Lynn. You know, and I understand that this is departmentalized, but to you, what's the most important? I heard you talking, you know, the jail here, the propane costs, electricity and all that going up. Which is the highest priority, search and rescue, or that in your mind? And not that you've got to one against the other, it's just, there's a need.
Well, there is, and unfortunately, there's, every division of the law enforcement public safety aspect is getting taxed very hard. Between the jail is Nick's doing a great job managing the jail. The problem is it's now coming up on 10 years old. It's starting to break down. That's where those costs that Mike was talking about. We're losing those things. We've got to vamp a few things to try to make it better, make it more energy efficient. When you talk about we're kind of a double-edged sword.
Well,
It's a very
it's
tough
not
question to
like
answer
work,
because the search and rescue, the mission of search and rescue and what we're taxed with doing, we need to be able to do that. And we can't get our equipment out of our building. That's always a problem. You know, and so we have lots of requirements and lots of needs from the detention side of the house. We also have law enforcement needs and issues that we're trying to deal with and to combat the growth and the populace that we deal with on a regular basis. So I can't say that one necessarily is more important than the other. It just depends on what hat I have on.
Well, I understand that, but you talk about communications and stuff through the sheriff's office is breaking down. That seems to me to be more paramount, or it needs to be. Now, that's my point.
Yeah.
Because you're, as a sheriff, responsible for the people in the community, you know, for safety. We get people coming in from the other counties, that's true, and the lake and everything, I understand that, but it just seems like, you know, there's certain core issues that have to function to make the rest function. It seems to me like first would be the sheriff's department. I realize there's money needed everywhere, but there's a finite amount, and I'll speak for some of the taxpayers, you know, there's a limit to how much people can pay. It's nice to have these things, I understand that. I understand that freezing. I wouldn't want to go to a meeting at 15 degrees in a building, you probably wouldn't find me there.
And I don't find any of my guys there either.
Yeah.
And the dispatch issue, we're trying to resolve the dispatch issue, just to be very clear and upfront, is we have stuff on 911 money, okay? And Nick's been in conversations trying to determine whether or not those 911 funds, every time you pay your phone bill, or your money goes to the 911 account, he's trying to determine whether or not if those upgrades to that 911 center can be used with those funds or not. that's still a conversation piece. It was brought today because it's just part of the discussion.
But
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm against
No.
the search and rescue stuff.
No.
I'm just trying to figure this stuff out. I don't get to go to these meetings too often. But, it just seems like, I guess Mike, I don't know Mike, but the guy in the blue shirt over there, he's having to scrounge a little bit here and a little bit there, and, and this is this to me is a central network, the nerve core of everything in the county has to be the sheriff's office, not the other way around. And he's trying to do this, he's trying to save money here, he's trying to do that, and we're talking about it spending money, which sounds like you guys really need it. I'm not, like I said, I gotta look at all this from all sides for me. But it just seems like the sheriff's part is the most important, get that fixed, and quit making everybody scrounge, and then start working on this, which I understand needs to be planned down the road, and get going on it. And that's my perspective, Once again, there's only a limit to how much people can. I've got friends down in the Gallatin Valley that want to retire, and they're afraid they can't because people have come up with good ideas, solid ideas, and it's running people out of the Gallatin County because they can't afford to pay the taxes.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people around here, they've got the same concern.
Yeah,
I want a good solid sheriff's department before I want anything else.
And with that, Susan Rescue, like I said, is a statutory requirement for the sheriff. And it's a big burden to bear on her because she has, when things go bad, it doesn't matter what goes on. If it's a car crash or a wildfire or something, her phone goes off all the time. And so she gets taxed with quite a burden of all sorts of public safety.
Right.
And so, for her, putting me in this position of trying to make sure that that's functional, and we've done fairly well. But it's for this whole concept is that we have to make everything very functional. And communication's key. I spend a lot of time, the commissioners, all three of them are probably tired of seeing me. Because I'm over here all the time, and it's not necessarily, this isn't necessarily, and I'm not over here sometimes for a need, this is what we're looking at, because this is where progression's taking us. So, to kind of answer your question, I can't really say what takes more priority, because they're all very important. A communication center, we'll start there, without a good communication center, no else functions. Without computers, I think you were here for part of the computer. If our computers don't work, we can't.
That's what I mean, that's the nerve center.
Yeah, and it is. And so, but with that, if I have great communications, but I can't get my people where I need them to go because doors are frozen, we have an all different situation. And as much as we relied on mutual aid agreements between Gallatin County and Lewis and Clark and Madison and even Jefferson County to help us with search and rescue stuff, they're facing the same issues we are, and it's very hard. Last November, when we were out looking for Gordon McGaugh, the hunter that had a heart attack, that was a 3-day event, and it involved Lewis and Clark and ourselves and Jefferson County. Jefferson County at the same time is running their own man search on the other side of the mountain for somebody else. Lewis and Clark was up at one of their lakes trying to find somebody up there. And so it's very tough to try to pull and work together as teams, but we still need to have that continuity with ourselves to be able to function. So, detention, it doesn't matter what we do or how we do it. Proactive, I like to use proactive law enforcement instead of reactive. Because that's what it was when I got here, it was very reactive. We sat in the office and waited for a call to come in. Not a good use of tax dollars, I'll be honest with you. If you're sitting in the office waiting for something bad to happen, I want to send you home. And now we're proactive. We try to go out there and stop those speeds. People don't realize that a fatal car crash costs the insurance companies, on average, $1.2 million. That comes back to our pockets because they're going to get their money back from premiums. And so as much as people get disdained about the officers being out there stopping speeders, in the grand scheme of things, we're trying to prevent and reduce those costs. So if you look at all the crosses on our highway, there's 87 of them, I think, or 88 now, because we've had 3 this year. You're talking $100 million that insurance companies have paid out for crashes in our own county. And when you call your insurance company, they say, what's your zip code? I don't want to tell you. And I don't, because they're going to give me an inflated premium because of where I live. Not that I'm a bad driver, it's just everybody else that drives through my county is. So it's kind of working all that
Like I said,
together,
I'm just
you know.
trying to get information
Yeah.
myself to understand this and.
And I believe education is key. You have to, an educated public and an educated group of people that we work for makes things a lot easier. If people understand where we're coming at,
Yeah.
or what we're doing.
I've known police officers in Gallatin County and talked to them, and the chaplain down there, so I
Warren
understand.
Cooper's a great man,
He is.
you know. I call it Los Angeles,
Yeah,
down there.
he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
But, you know, I hear that, like, you said the records are open to the public. I don't even know where to go to find the records. Where do you find these public records?
You can call any one of the three of us, we can either direct you or we can sit down with you and go through it so that if you have any questions, we're right there to answer them for you, anytime.
Well, it's just, and I thank you for answering that. Just, like I say, trying to figure this out.
No, and it's a battle. You know, it's not, like the commissioner said, this isn't something that, it didn't happen overnight. It seems like it has, because there's been a lot of public attention to it here lately. But it's discussions that have taken place over a good period of time. And trying to do, you know, we've changed how we do things. And part of that is looking at that long-range plan. Where are we gonna go? How are we gonna get there? And within the means that are provided. And I think right now we're at a good point where we have some ability to take some of those long-range plans and put them in place at a reasonable cost. You know, is it perfect as everybody wants? Yeah, probably not. But I think it's reasonable. And so,
And each department would like to have it perfect, but then they have,
no,
you know, we gotta,
there's some give and take.
yeah, back and forth, like the computer thing you're talking about. You know, you gotta have those, you said it shuts down every hour.
Every hour.
That shoot thing.
Yeah. You know, if I don't carry a taser anymore for that prime reason, because I've
As
tasered
long as
my
the water wheel's plugged in.
Drop my coffee on it. I apologize for taking so
No,
much.
thank you, that was well done. Brian, would you like to address the needs of your department?
This isn't the first time we've been here for this. About a year and a half ago, John Hahn came from the Solid Waste Board and said he was tired. Well, in 2009, Broadwater County was given a grant to purchase a cardboard baler to start a recycling program. John and his wife took that on to operate it. John kind of used the Pond Supply business to subsidize that with labor to keep it moving. Since then, John's business sold. He came to the Solid Waste Board and said, would the county be interested in taking over the cardboard operation? We said, we might as well. It's solid waste. We'll deal with it. So we acquired a cardboard baler. We didn't have anywhere to put it because the building that it was housed in was sold and it needed to be moved. So the Solid Waste Board got to looking at what was available at that time. At that time, the Perry building was for sale. That is adjacent to all this other stuff we've been talking about. The search and rescue building, it's all in the general neighborhood. Solid Waste Board thought that would be a good option for solid waste, weed, mosquito, for their storage needs, that kind of thing. That was failed to be acted upon. It was purchased prior to that point. There's now a business operating there, good for them. But it would have been a good fit for the solid waste department. What we have as far as equipment needs, we have a backhoe and now there's a skid steer that we store outside that is not good for anything. It's hard on equipment to store it outside. We plug it in the wintertime, but you know, that doesn't really prolong its life that much. So now we have a cardboard baler that we operate outdoors. This time of year, it's fine, it works good, other than it gets wet when it rains, and it can be hard to operate when it's windy. So what we need as a department is a building of some type to house that baler in and conduct some operations in there and store equipment. We can do that with a a pole barn type building, but we're not, as a solid waste board and a department, we're not convinced that the $15 a square foot number that's been thrown around is quite accurate. I think the last time we looked at it, we could build a building that would work for, what was it, 100 and, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, I have to go back and look, but it was less than 200,000, more than 100,000 to build a building that would be adequate for what we need. You know, the solid waste board is willing to go back and revisit that and look at what we want to do. You know, if it were a perfect world and I had anything that I could want, my suggestion would be, let's build a new transfer station down here in town. And I would give the existing transfer station to the weed and mosquito department. Because we spend probably 2.5 to 3 hours a day hauling garbage up that hill just to turn around and haul it back. We could eliminate a lot of moving trucks around by just putting a transfer station at the existing canister site. That would be a perfect world. That's probably not gonna happen. So what we do is we look at how we can manage things around that. We have equipment that we use exclusively in town that we need to keep here. So we would build a building to house that. We have equipment that we use exclusively up on the hill. We need space up there to accommodate that. We have that up there now. We don't need to do anything to the existing transfer station other than a little maintenance activities. You know, that building is 20 years old, like Wynn said, with the jail here. There's things that happen over 20 years, especially when you run equipment inside a building. Things need to get fixed. And when you're running across the concrete floor with a bucket or a loader, there needs to be some work done up there. We haven't got to that point yet. The nice thing about solid waste is we're fee funded. We are the district and we charge $128 a year to members of the district for each residence, and that funds us. We don't get any general funding out of the mill base. So we use that pool of money to operate with. In the past, solid waste has gone and needed to update equipment. They've gone to the PILT fund and got a loan, a no-interest loan to purchase equipment, and that was paid back over time. We're the only department that does do that does pay that loan back. Everybody else just reaches in the pot, grabs what they need and goes. Solid waste paid it back early. So we kind of run as a business. We make it work with what we have to deal with. And I have an advisory board that is in need of a few members. If anybody's interested, you're more than welcome to sign up and join that. But you know, people don't think about solid waste until we don't do our job. Then it becomes a big issue. There's a reason that in the big cities, when anything needs to get done in the public sector, the first people that go out on strike are the trash handlers. Because you start piling garbage up, things get attention. So as long as you don't think we do anything, we're doing our job. That's where we like to be. We do not like to draw attention to ourselves. So we keep the trash moving. We handle about 4,300 tons of garbage a year. We had a 1.3% increase over last year. That includes what we didn't take to the landfill, but that doesn't include what we pulled out of the waste stream because of recycling. That adds another couple, probably 110, 120 tons of waste that didn't go to the landfill because we pulled it out in recycling.
Can you expand on the economic value of that for the citizens? You know, the tipping
For every
fees,
ton of
the
waste that we haul to the landfill costs Broadwater County about $40 for every ton. So pulling that waste stream out we save that $40 that would go to the landfill, plus we gain a little bit by selling that as a commodity. Right now, cardboard is running about $50 a ton. So we get that. Aluminum, you know, it's, what is it, 35 cents a pound or whatever. You know, it's a commodity, it varies up and down, it depends on when you take it to market. Plastic, that runs in the neighborhood of probably $70 to $80 a ton. We haven't sold any plastic for quite a while because we have a compactor box for that now. We're making it more efficient by not hauling it loose. We're stuffing it into a big canister to see how much we can fit in there. So it's, in the solid waste world, the less you touch it, the better off you are. I know in one of the comments you had earlier was, you know, we haven't looked at putting any of the recycling stuff up on the hill. It's best to do that material down here because the less we touch it, the better off we are. If we touch it one time, put it where it needs to go, that's better than having to handle it twice. And we would have to handle it at least twice if we did everything on the hill. So, and we've increased the places where we collect cardboard now. We have collection at the Radersburg site, at the Toston site, at Winston, and here in town. We don't have anything at Dry Gulch just because we don't see a lot of cardboard in those canisters. People that live out that area are used to bringing that stuff into town, so that works. You know, John did a great job getting the recycling effort going here. And once you get it going, to stop it is it's not the right thing to do. I'll put it that way. So, and we also get some waste or some cardboard from the White Sulphur country. They are coming over with their cardboard, collecting it there, bringing it here. We bale it for them, or they bale it for themselves, and then we'll ship it out of here as a consolidated load. So it's kind of growing by itself, which is kind of neat.
Thanks.
Any
One
questions
thing.
about how trash works?
You guys paid for the study by Great West, who looked at a lot of different options for you.
Yes.
One was the pole building, and then Sean did a study just recently and looked at Montana post frame. And that's what came in at $15 a square foot. Could you elaborate on
I
that?
think the Great West number was similar.
It is, yeah.
I think it was, size of building was a little different or something.
Yeah, you know, the $15 a square foot is basically just a building shell.
Right.
And it's completely enclosed. That doesn't include concrete floors or insulation or heating or electrical.
Right.
You have to add all those things on, and in the report I prepared, I've got those all tabulated out. But yeah, so it just depends on what you need. If you need a building that's heated in the winter, you've got to go. You've got to do those things. You probably need a concrete floor, and you need insulation, you need heat and electricity, and all those.
Yeah, and that's what the solid waste board is there for, is to do that kind of stuff. Right? Research those things and then bring that information to the commission for approval. That's what we'll be doing for the next couple of months, probably, at least.
Excellent. You guys have a great board, and if anybody is interested, please let Nicole Brown know, and she'd be more than happy to get your name on the list, and we can get you on that board. Dana, I think you're the last one. Have anything to add?
Well, the only thing I really got to add is I know that we've discussed this. Franklin has come down to the shop a few times last year, brought Donnie Primal down, discussed some different options, lean-tos, something to house, dump trucks. I got 4 dump trucks that sit outside all the time, you know, 50,000 apiece. I got 4 graders that sit outside all the time, $300,000 a piece. You know, most of my little stuff I get in the shop, you know, into the same shop that Mosquito and Solid Waste, or Weed has got their 2 rigs in. If those rigs were out of there, I'd have 2 more spaces to make sure I could get everything I need in. I keep my pickups out next to the office. In that shop, that fills up that whole compartment in there. And I know last week we discussed just options of putting the building up down in the corner down there, just for the graders basically. Franklin, and I know he's talked to me in tune to keeping my equipment covered. It is hard on it. The issue that we came up with last week was basically in the wintertime when we're plowing snow. Do we plow snow every day? No, we don't. We plow quite a bit. You know, I don't know what those days turn out to, but you know, most of our snow is basically back out east. A lot of times Winston will get it. You know, and other than that, unless it's a huge storm like it was this spring, you know, we had that big storm, and then I think earlier in January or February we had another big snowstorm, you know, that requires to be out. And it's cold. So anyway, Sean put together a deal for a building down there on the other end. I can't remember the size of it, but basically big enough to house 4 graders with the equipment on them. Heated floor and insulated, so you know, with drains in the floor, so when we back in, when it's cold out, everything will melt. Is it a big need? No, it's not. We've been doing this for years. Would it be nice? Yes. Jump in a machine in the morning, the whole thing's thawed out, there's no ice, there's no snow. That's tough on equipment. We run in extreme, I mean extreme cold, you know, when we're plowing. I mean, you can talk to anybody out here, I don't care who it is. This last big snowstorm we plowed snow for 4 days straight. And I don't know how much overtime, TJ had overtime, Willie had overtime. And as far as that stuff goes, that doesn't bother me. It's just that if our equipment breaks down due to a bunch of ice and snow buildup and all that garbage, I'm the one that gets calls. And I don't get a lot of calls because I try to keep up with it, you know, the best I can, and I know sometimes we're slow. And that's the only reason that is in a county-wide big snowstorm. And sometimes it might take 3 to 4 days to get to you. I mean, it depends on where you're at. All our low-lying roads, they're going first. Mail routes, bus routes, you know, they're the ones that are going to get plowed. We've had calls from Sheriff's Office. We've tried to minimize that just a little bit. You know, basically just because, you know, they're the same people that are calling them are the same people that are calling me, so they may as well just call me. You know, and that's kind of where I've talked to Nick a little bit and Wynn and trying to get things called there. But as far as the need goes, you know, is that building a need? No, it's not. It would be nice to keep those machines housed and covered. You know, like I said, at $350,000 a piece. You know, there's a lot of money sitting out there. You know, so other than that, and I don't know, what'd you come up with, like 100,000, something like that?
Yeah, about that, roughly.
To house the four graders and a heated floor and drains, you know, so. That's, you know, it all costs money. It does. And I'm not gonna spend any more money than I have to, but it came up, so.
Thank you. And Mike and Sean, did you guys want to address we've never had somebody in-house who was a contractor with that kind of experience. We've always had to contract that out. We had a maintenance person who cleaned. This is an ace in the hole for looking at some of this stuff now because Mike can do so much of it firsthand on his own. Do you guys want to address that at all? Do you have anything that particular subject as far as?
And I'll kind of address it a little bit for Mike. I just, he's one guy, and the kind of buildings you're looking at are pretty large and be hugely time consuming. He would need resources, quite a few resources, to get something like that done in any kind of a time frame.
Yep, I agree.
He's good, but he's one guy.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
thing. And, I think where we talked about utilizing Mike was like the chemical storage, where he's got to frame in a 10 by 20 building and put on a little lean-to structure to kind of cover their drain and facility. Something like that he could probably handle and bust out fairly quickly and make something happen. But
Coordinate the building process and.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
they're contracting a head contractor, you would take that part and you would
Yeah.
subcontract it essentially, which would be less expensive.
Absolutely, you're saving, your sub-consultants are 10%, 10 to 15%, depending on what it is. You'll definitely save that by having him coordinate plumbers and electricians and installation companies and concrete people, and there's a lot that goes into it.
Thank you. And one other piece that I think we need to bring out is kind of what Dana brought out. Just because we're talking about all these needs does not mean that they're going to be happening tomorrow. The emergency, or the one that's the most emergent, is the combined search and rescue weed mosquito facilities. Brian said that they will be working on this over the next couple of months, probably bringing something to us in the winter time at the soonest. Dana said he's not gonna spend money he doesn't have to, but he's thinking about it, and we have the resources for him to be able to do that. Does that mean he's gonna do it this year? No, not necessarily. So I think that needs to be kept in consideration when you hear all these bits of information. The other thing is we're not looking, number one, we don't want to. Number two, we don't need to. Number three, we can't raise taxes on you guys. The budget is solid. We went through the numbers just 2 months ago, and this county has a good, strong budget. That doesn't circulate through the rumor mill nearly like a negative story does, but if anybody wants to meet and discuss the budget, we can show you that. You can see the numbers for yourself. Again, we have a surplus of pills because we've been smart with that money. So, just talking about how to increase and improve efficiencies so that we can get the jobs done better and less expensively does not equate to we're gonna ask you guys to pay more taxes. Again, we don't want to, we don't need to, and we can't. So, anything more from the board on this? Did I miss anything?
I'm glad there's so many people here to hear.
Yeah, firsthand. I really appreciate that too. Virginia?
I was just wondering if I could ask, I know volunteers, weed board, I don't know if there's anything we missed that you guys want to bring up, or my mosquito board members that are here.
The only thing I will bring up is, when we're talking about that, remember at the beginning that it was voted upon by the county that we have a certain bill that we get, the weed board. We have money available to help pay for this. That's a return of the money that the people are charged with taxes for the mill that the weed board gets. We want to put some of that money back into this building. Now, if you think about it, when Dana was talking, he's talking $350,000 for one machine. We're talking $500,000, $500,000, not even double, not as two machines even put together, for a building that would house 3 different operations and benefit an entire county and outsiders as well. Because the weed board does go out with BLM and Lewis and Clark County, and we contract with them helping to spray some of these other areas, problem areas and things like that. Now, if you think about a family buying a home, $250,000 isn't much. That'd be 2 homes.
Well, that's not exactly true. There's a lot of people in this county that can afford a
Well,
$75,000 house.
True, I'll stand. I'll agree with you.
I understand what you're getting at, and I understand the
But I'm just saying, even if it was 10 families, I mean, and you had it, 90
Yeah,
families.
so I think the idea you said that what part of what you got could be kicked back into the building helps a lot.
Right.
That makes sense.
We had money to do that. Solid Waste had money that they could put into it. They're making money to put back into it. We could have had the other one paid off. To give you some idea, we could have had the Perry building paid off, and in 5 years, we had figured this out, and we would have turned it over to the county. The people would have owned it. I mean, when you look at the whole financial picture, and you look at the bigger picture, with the growth that it's gonna take for this county, that we are growing, are we gonna sit on our duff, or are we gonna be leaders? Are you gonna be the head, or are you gonna be the butt end? See?
People just want to know the facts and be able to lay them out.
Oh, sure, I
on the
agree with
table in
you.
front of them,
What
and look at it and see if they can.
Right,
afford it.
what I'm trying to get across to you is there's a whole lot of garbage, negative garbage out there that we're being fed
That's
all
why
the
we
time.
lay the facts out on the
Yeah.
table in plain sight, no matter
Exactly.
what,
Exactly,
and let the chips fall where they
exactly.
may.
So that's why I wanted to share that part with you.
Okay. No, I
that
agree.
There's money coming back to the
See,
people.
when you
next
said that, what we need to do is see how much of that would be kicked back in. Are you talking $15? Are you talking thousands of dollars?
I'm talking thousands of
Okay, that's
dollars.
what we need to know before we
Yeah.
make decisions.
I think we had, I forgot.
Part of that was also some grant funds that had been carried over that could go in towards that too. If I
Right.
remember correctly, but yeah. It
Right,
was,
but I think, what is it? We have somewhere around 10 to 20,000 a year that we could kick into this program.
Well, see, that's what people need to know. They see that out there, you know, it makes sense.
And see, the
You know,
story
let's say
you were always told is, well, it's gonna cost the people, are we we're gonna have
Well, no,
raised
that's not,
taxes. And
that's
not
partly true, but that's not all true. I'm down here trying to figure out, like I said, I don't get to come to these meetings, I'm losing a lot of money sitting here. You know, I'm gonna be working late tonight to make up the difference. But,
with you.
you know, when you say that, $200,000 house, no, there's a lot of people that cannot afford that. That's just a fact.
I'd like to get my mosquito board members an opportunity also with Chuck or Elsie or you guys, anything that you can see.
I told, Franklin was in, I'm Chuck Allen, I'm from the mosquito board for the river. And we told Franklin that when we had a meeting downstairs one night that it's a big liability to have those chemicals like we got them stored now, because something could happen accidentally, and lightning strike, and any number of things happen. Somebody run into it. But anyway, there's a lot of liability sitting there for chemicals and stuff that you know, we need to address that too. And plus, a lot of those chemicals, it's not good getting, I've ran that spray truck for a lot of years. And it's, you know, I'd go home and smell like that stuff we sprayed, you know, it's just fact of life. But it'd be nice to have somewhere where you can wash that off. I used to use bottled water. We had bottled water in the truck, and I use bottled water to wash the stuff off my hands and stuff. But, you know, it still gets on your shoes and your pants and stuff, and so it'd be nice to be able to have some, you know, at least for your eyes, and stuff you get in your eyes, and there's a lot of safety things involved there. So it is, we've been trying to get everybody in the same building where we can all, you know, share the cost and spread it around a little bit, and all benefit from it. And that means the whole county too. And so, anyway, that's all I got, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Elsie, did you have anything to add? Okay.
I expected something out of you.
Yes.
Does the land you're going to want to put on, does it have extra acreage to add some more to it? If you can't build all of that at one time? Like if you could build a weed and the Winds Search and Rescue, is there still more land there to build big boys garbage stuff?
Yeah, it's 17 acres on west side of the road, and what'd you say, 9? on the other, or
I'm
is
just
it-
guessing, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot there,
Oh,
yeah. It's where the old horse racing used to be, the old fairgrounds. That's what we're talking about.
no, I'm not from here.
Oh, okay.
Now I am, but.
Yes, John.
Before when we talked about buildings and things, if we contract that out, a building to someone else, is the county required to pay Davis-Bacon wages? And I imagine Sean would probably know that too, or, I heard anything over 25,000, that any government entity was involved, then they were required to pay Davis-Bacon. And if that's so, is there any way to get around that?
A couple of things, and then I'll hand it to Sean. What you are referring to as far as leasing the building out or another entity buying it?
To build a building.
Right, to build it, thank you. That was Plan 1, and that got pretty well squashed at the beginning. What we're looking at now, passing it off to Sean, and that would have allowed us to not do the Davis-Bacon, because it would have been a private entity building and we would have then leased it. But this building and Montana Post, Frank, can you address those?
And that's a good question. I guess the one thing we'll have to look at, I don't know for sure, that's what I'm telling you, but primarily that would apply to construction projects. If we get quotes, I believe there are some ways to not have to do that if you're getting a specific product, like if you're getting a building that's all one piece and they bid it as one unit, then you may be able to not require that because you're basically just paying a lump sum for a building that you've spec'd out. So that's something we'll have to look at and make sure we're in compliance.
The construction of the building you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything over 25,000, the construction of the building, but the prefabs things you're talking about, no.
Yeah. So that may be the answer.
So any concrete work or anything like that,
Yep.
it's over 25,000.
Electrical,
Yeah.
concrete, plumbing,
Bid.
anything being
Based.
built, yes.
Yeah.
Then the price goes up.
And also for those of you who are here, we have this document. It's got the department's needs detailed. It's the WWC engineering study. It's the Great West engineering study. It's got some maps. And it's got a rough out of the interior of the building. If anybody wants a copy, we can get you those. If you want it sent electronically, we can email it to you. If you do want a hard copy, you can just get it from the clerk and recorder's office. There is a charge that we do have to pay for, or charge for all copies, because we don't want to be in competition with our local business. So anyone is welcome to these, and again, if you want it electronically, it's free. So just leave us your email. Any other questions, comments, concerns, input, and from the board as well?
No, it was a very good meeting.
All right. One of the things that we were addressed with on Monday is consistently asking you, Sean, to go back and retweak numbers, get more details, and then come back here for an hour or two of a meeting, driving back and forth, to then readdress that the following week. What I think we need to do as a commission is either decide that that's what we're going to continue to do with no resolution, or as a commission state that we are going to go ahead and continue this process with an intent of getting it done. We certainly need to put this in front of the public, but we need a package to do so. But I think that for the taxpayers, they need to know that the money we're paying to get this done is not so that it can just be tabled for another year. And I think that's only fair for you department heads as well, to have some kind of a foundation that we are not going to just continue kicking this can down the road and continuing to bruise our toes, but we are actually committed to moving forward and putting together a proposal to bring to a public hearing. What say you?
I would agree.
Well, I think still we need that total price. There's a lot of questions like this modular units here. Does that include the foundation? Does that include utilities? There's questions like that.
To the best of my ability, within a couple of weeks, we'll have to flush some of those numbers out a little bit more. Get a quote for that layout that everybody's looked at and kind of agreed that would work. To bring those, get a delivered price. That's really the only question, is just fine tune those numbers, and then you've got an actual quote to go off of.
Right, I think we need those figures.
Yeah, I mean, these are estimates, and what I would do if you guys want to go forward with it is we'll get quotes for everything, and then you'll have real numbers to base your decision on.
And I'll take it in a minute. In order to continue that, I think we need to at least have a vote that we are in earnest on this. Otherwise, again, I guess I'm a little bit gun shy from a year and a half of restudying, and okay, we'll wait until next week. I think this board has a responsibility to the public and to the employees. This doesn't mean we are committing, and it doesn't mean we're committing to what, but it does mean that we are putting on record that we are serious about pursuing this, or that we are going to drop it, we're not going to address it again, and we're not going to continue to waste your time. Brian.
I have one comment from, as the safety coordinator for the county. Granted, the last safety meeting we had, there was only 5 people at it, so it's pretty easy to find a meeting space for 5 people. But when we start rolling into our safety program for Broadwater County, we are going to need a place that can house roughly half of the employees at a time, say 35 to 40 people, for safety training. We don't have that right now unless we go and search out a building in town, like a school or a church or something, to accommodate that. And we have nothing that allows us to use any technology. So for safety training purposes, that was what I had mentioned, Sean, from the safety side of things, was a training facility that can be used with technology and house half the staff.
We should have use of the library for, there's always, the state and all them always have it, they're always having meetings there. The library, we're part of that.
Or at their whim. If they're using it, we can't.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'd have to be set up ahead of time. I mean, that's a good option there for.
What did it cost to use the livestock auction building for a public meeting?
When did that ever end up at?
We received a claim for $250 for that.
The school is a reasonable option, but they are using it at the time when we would be using it also. So we'd have to compete with that.
Well, yeah, it'd have to be worked out, but that's a county library too, so.
Granted, the public could use a building that we build for training purposes. There are lots of groups that are looking for places to meet. We would give them another option. So.
Yes, sir.
These buildings that the engineer, I guess that's what he is, the engineer is proposing is just a bare building, no cement, no finished project, like got your $15 squared, just a bare building.
Yeah,
without
$15 a square foot is just the building shelled in, weatherproof.
Okay.
So, you know,
well, we need a final price on a whole building, not a half a building, like the utilities and sewer.
yes.
And then part of this is.
We've included that in our costs, but they're estimates, and what I'd like to do is firm that up with actual quotes from, you know, people who are gonna do the work, and get a very concrete number.
And those estimates are in here. We're not flying blind on any of this. Again, it's been 2 years in the works to get to this point.
Okay.
But what I think that the commission needs to do is at least have it on record that we're serious about this and we're committed to it. If again, the prices come back at double, or some piece of this isn't, as we assume at this point based on multiple of studies, is going to be, then we can certainly back out at that time. But I think it is disingenuous to our employees, to our department heads, and to the public for us to, again, just keep kicking this down the road. We've got 2 years practice on that. I think it's practice that is not serving the public or the county well in any way. So is there anything from the board on that, any agreement, any debate?
No debate for me. I think it's high time. We've been looking at this and looking at this and looking at it. I don't think there's any more way of looking at it. until Sean comes forth with numbers.
That's what I say, get some figures here that we have to go on. I mean, I see this one figure here on Pole Village, $38 a square foot. Apparently concrete floor and stuff like that. So there's a lot of variations. There's a lot of things that aren't addressed here yet. A lot of them. Because when you're talking about $400,000, and another thing, you look at, there's 7 offices in here. What's it gonna cost to furnish each one of those offices?
That's
You know.
completely separate.
I know, but I mean, that's the cost that the people are gonna have to know.
Yeah.
Just the county attorney's office here was $11,000 for the furniture in it.
Raymond, we have furniture already. We have offices that have 2 sets of desks, 2 sets of computers because they're shared. Because we have a new building doesn't mean that office furniture cannot be used in the new building. I don't think anybody is.
Well, assuming it's being used, if there's 2 in there, they must be using it. But that's just another question. I mean, there's a pile of questions that has to be addressed.
Virginia.
That's what my thought was, is, I mean, if you look at it, if it's weed or mosquito extension, whatever, basically what we're utilizing now will get moved with us. I mean, I don't see having to go out and buy new furniture just to furnish. It's no, I'm gonna utilize what I have, and I know weed will well. So, you know, the main thing's gonna be is, as it was for me moving now, and if we have to move again or in another time, it's just the installation of phone services, things like that, that are gonna be those costs, but that's gonna be if any of us moving somewhere.
And we could get new used furniture. I bought my desk downstairs at the hospital garage sale about a year ago for $1. So, you know, I encourage anybody else to do the same. Who had the question? Was it you, Elsie? Or was it Trudy? I saw a hand. All right.
Based on the price being 300,000, 400,000, 500, whatever it comes up to, are your estimates going to be from 3 different companies, or are you just getting it from one? And because of the amount, is it the county supposed to get at least 3 bids?
Well, and here's, for estimating purposes, I mean, we could go any way you guys would really like. I've done some of that legwork already up front on the actual building shells. As far as the individual contractors, yeah, we could get 3 bids and go.
That'd be when it come time for the bid.
Yeah, but that's when you set it out to bid. I mean, what I'd do is I'd get, you know, bids from people that I think are kind of in the middle of the road and probably had a contingency on it.
And we'd go with the engineer's estimate.
Yes,
Start
absolutely.
off.
So when you actually put it out to bid, that's when
Okay.
you do that.
Mike.
But I think you want to be kind of serious, because it's not fair to contractors to go and start having everybody's throat, they waste all their time.
Oh, I
Yes.
And including Sean's time, and probably my time, wasting our time to do nothing, just for, you know, because
Yeah.
nothing really, it's not a decision that's not made, whether you're gonna move forward or not.
Anyway, that's what it is now for him, for Sean to get these figures, then we have something to go.
But,
Then it can be voted a yes or a no, or.
yeah.
Madam
Yeah, I agree with that part, but to move forward, I think you need to be serious whether you're gonna move forward or not. So if you're not serious about moving forward, to waste contractors' time, I hated that when people did that to me when I was a contractor. It was ridiculous.
Well, and I think we had tried to, on studying this as we have, been looking at it so many different ways, our staff has gotten excited thinking, we're gonna have room. And then we pull the rug out from under. It's high time to do something different.
So I would, unless there's more comments or questions, all right. I would entertain a motion that this commission is committed to
Madam
moving.
Chairman, if this is a working meeting as stated on the agenda, you can't have any votes or decisions made?
You would be correct, however, this is a tabled subject from the last meeting, and we actually closed the working meeting at 11 o'clock in order to address this.
But this still wasn't on the agenda for today.
It was on the agenda Monday and tabled Monday to today. As it was tabled, we are within Robert's Rules of Order and under MCA correctly. So thank you for bringing us around on that. With that, I would entertain a motion that this commission is committed to moving forward and getting the information needed in order to put together a package for a public hearing. Is there a second?
To get the information.
Just exactly what the
Finalize the study.
motion says.
And then we'll move one way or the other after that.
Is that a second?
And I'll second to that point there to get this information.
It's been moved and seconded to commit to moving forward on this plan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. One other thing I wanted to bring up while you're here, Sean, some of the emails that I read, I think before you got here, people are interested again in a building that is not the county's, and that is the Forest Service building. Tim Ravindal and Harold Gibbs both mentioned, why can't you just use the steel building? And I'm looking for the quote under the Great West study with the prices. First of all, it doesn't belong to the county, it belongs to Rural Fire District. There's a contract between Forest Service and Rural Fire that they have to use it for a certain number of years and then they can move it as they will. That is not the county, the Rural Fire District is a separate political subdivision and it is not governed by the county. The Great West study determined that in order to use that building, the existing frame would save up to 15% of the cost of a new steel building. So that's the savings. The negative considerations include utilities, including sewer, water, electricity, must be extended to serve the new building. The building system components must be inspected and the plans must be certified by an engineer.
They gotta
as
be
part of the
extended
new
anyway,
building.
no matter where this building
I'm
goes.
sorry, Franklin, can I ask you to hang on for just a minute? Building
Why don't you
permit.
let Sean know?
Building permit process. All frame parts must be cleaned and primed before assembly, and savings from use of the parts would be used for frame reconditioning and building certification at the cost of approximately $300,000 to $325,000. Anyone who tracked the building of the Duck Creek Fire Station knows that the Rural Fire District tried to use their building, again not the county building, instead of building a new fire building. The cost that they looked at was about $340,000 in order to make that a fire station. It was less expensive for Rural Fire to build brand new at Duck Creek than this Forest Service building. This rumor keeps circulating. It needs to be corrected with just the facts. This is from Great West Engineering. And again, anyone who wants a copy, please just drop your email by the desk as you go. Any other comments from anybody? Comments? All right. We'll have another budget meeting here in about 2 weeks. And thank you all. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks.
Okay, one thing that didn't get addressed. One thing that didn't get addressed was time, which is no big deal.
I just wonder where you get to it.
Well, it's gonna be dependent on folks, is what I'm telling you. I'll get on this today, but kind of how fast things get back to this.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many unanswered questions. Search and rescue, they're talking about, some 9/11. Big.
Besides of that, or 4 nights, I'll probably come home about 3 o'clock.
Price comes to put that building up there.